Ladies and gentlemen, you now have 30 seconds, that's right, 30 seconds left to place your bets on whether you think Matthew is going to pick Alfred Hitchcock for this video. Considering the fact that he admitted to loving the director's work in Day 17, it's fair to assume that Alfred Hitchcock is going to be his pick. Although I will be just as surprised as you are if he doesn't pick Alfred Hitchcock. Well, that's your 30 seconds done there. Let's see if you were right. Matthew?
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Movies and Milk 30 Day Film Challenge, where today myself and Michael will be discussing our favourite films by our favourite directors. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, specifically the films that Michael and I wish we had seen in the theatres, I stated that Alfred Hitchcock was absolutely my favourite filmmaker of all time. And so, of course, today we're going to be speaking about another Alfred Hitchcock film. I can never decide what my favourite of his is. It all comes down to how I'm feeling on that particular day. So the film that I prioritised to watch on that day will be my favourite Hitchcock film for that day. And so today, if I was watching a Hitchcock film, which I probably will watch this film after I've shot this video, is a little film from 1964 entitled Marnie. Marnie follows the titular character portrayed by Tippi Hedren, who is very much a habitual liar and a thief. As the film progresses, she eventually lands a job as a secretary working for Sean Connery's character Mark Rutland, and he is fully aware of her past and he tries to help her get out of this. But my goodness, this film is one of the darkest Hitchcock films you could ever watch, and definitely very, very heavy subject matters are scattered throughout this film. Now, I definitely don't recommend this film for everyone. It's not going to land favourably with everyone. I believe it does pose a real threat of being a very triggering film. A lot of the subjects that are discussed throughout the film and shown on screen belongs to that of rape, paedophilia, sexual abuse, domestic abuse, to name but a few.
If you don't want to go to bed, please get out.
But I do want to go to bed, Marnie. I very much want to go to bed.
No!
We can all agree as decent humans that these subjects are not exactly what we wish to find entertainment in, but Hitchcock is just such a masterful director that he can make a film with all these subject matters, very much like his nickname suggests, a very suspenseful time at the movies. I first watched this film when I was 12 years old. I remember specifically I came down with a really bad flu. ITV4 used to show a lot of Hitchcock films earlier on in the day, but Marnie was certainly one that would be shown at night, of course, given the subject matter. And I remember I was up pretty much all night, fever, coughing, sneezing, what have you. Marnie was on television, and at that time of the night it was really the only decent thing that I could find on the television, and this is pretty much the film that introduced me to Hitchcock. Probably not the best starting point. After having watched this film as a 12-year-old, I can honestly say that I never really enjoyed it at all. It was a film that I revisited as a teenager, 14, 15 years old, and that's where it finally clicked and appreciated the artistry wholeheartedly. This is a film that I believe can be very educational for a lot of people, and of course, as I mentioned, this is definitely not my favourite Hitchcock film, but there is a lot to be educated on here. And you know, the film definitely has a voice to share, it really, really does, and it is a very important voice that should be heard. So Marnie, definitely, as of today, as of this very moment, this is the film that I would most like to rewatch from Alfred Hitchcock's filmography. To me, I could argue it is just as hitting as A Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick, although it is definitely not as explicit as A Clockwork Orange. What is suggested is far more terrifying to me than having seen visuals on screen. Didn't realise that was up there the entire time. I'm going to draw a close to the review here. I've probably spoke about this film a little bit too much, my throat's getting all dry again. That's much better. So Michael, please take it away before I latch myself to this leather chair. Why I decided to wear a shirt and jeans on a day like today, I'll never know. I'll never understand. I'm a silly bastard. Michael, take it away.
Thank you, Matthew. You see, I just knew that you were going to talk about Hitchcock. I mean, at the time of recording this, I don't actually know for sure, but I'm about 100% certain that you've been talking about Hitchcock for the past 5 minutes. So anyway, my favourite film director. Whilst there have been many great film directors out there, there is one who has been consistently excellent throughout all of his works. Granted, he does only have 5 films and a TV show under his belt. All 5 of his films have a place in my top 50 favourite films of all time. I believe he is one of the best directors out there at the moment, and that is Sir Edgar Wright. Can you hear the dogs barking? Did you hear that? Fucking hell. All the windows and doors are closed, but I can still hear the bloody dogs outside. Ah! So yes, with films like Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and the Cornetto trilogy, it became very hard for me to just choose one of his works to be my favourite. Hello there. But if I had to pick my favourite, and I do understand that this is an unpopular opinion because this is most people's least favourite Edgar Wright film, it would have to be The World's End, the third and final film in the Cornetto trilogy. Now I, like most folk, found this to be fairly disappointing when I first saw it in cinema. However, I bought the Blu-ray as soon as it came out and I rewatched it, thought it was great, and not that I've been keeping count or anything, but I think my World's End Blu-ray is the one that I've watched the most. Just like any Edgar Wright movie, there are so many little things cram-packed into this film that you don't notice the first time around, and it just pleads the audience to watch it more than once. This 2013 sci-fi comedy follows the character of Gary King, who gathers up his 4 childhood friends to recreate and hopefully conquer the pub crawl that they attempted back in their last day of school. They sure hope for it to be a very messy evening, but the evening gets a little bit more messy when it turns out all the inhabitants of their old town have been taken over by aliens. And as they progressively get more and more drunk, the more and more chaotic the situation becomes. I think this film showcases all of the actors and actresses at their peak. That, and I believe this to be Edgar Wright's best directed film, primarily because of the excellently choreographed fight scenes. Most of the fight scenes are made to look like they're done in one continuous take, and there's just so much stuff happening on screen that I can't imagine how stressful it must have been to direct that. Again, I understand that a lot of people think that this is Edgar Wright's weakest film, but if you did watch it and found it to be very disappointing, I do implore you to at least give it another try. I think it's maybe because this film is a lot more dramatic than Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, but I think that if you know once you're getting yourself into, you'll have a good time. If you rewatch it and you don't have a good time, then comment down in the comment section down below and we'll have a little friendly argument. And before I close this video out, if you haven't seen anything by Edgar Wright, like I said, all of his stuff is perfection. And if you somehow haven't seen any Alfred Hitchcock films, who the fuck are you? So that's the end of another day, ladies and gentlemen. We really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and tell us who is your favourite director and what is your favourite film by them. And also head over to the Movies and Milk Instagram where you can find the 30-day movie template. Until next time, stay safe, don't do anything stupid,
and we'll see you tomorrow.
Who the fuck are you?